today we're talking all about gluten. We talk a lot about gluten in our office, and a lot of times people think, oh, I'm not celiac, oh, I don't have any gluten intolerant, any sensitivities. So we're gonna do a little bit of a deep dive into gluten. So yeah, we're excited. I'm gonna start in just a moment or two. So to be mindful, thanks for the thumbs up. I hope everybody is doing well. I know out here for any of our locals, we are having a bit of a change of our weather, and it's wonderful. So nice.
Finally, we waited all summer for this. We are now entering paradise.
Yes.
It literally is.
Yeah, it's so nice. It's like in the 50s in the morning, and I think today it got up to around the 70s or the 80s. So beautiful time of year. We love it out here. But let's go ahead and get started.
Let's do the disclaimer.
Okay, let's do the
This
disclaimer.
presentation is for informational purposes only. This information is not a substitute for your medical doctor's advice. This is informational only. The information is not meant to prevent, diagnose, or treat or cure any health conditions. And lastly, if you're concerned about your underlying health conditions, please discuss it with your doctor or visit your local ER.
Okay, awesome. Now that the disclaimer is done, we can introduce ourselves. I am Lori Rappy from Thrive Functional Wellness Center. And
I am Dr. Rappy, co-founder of Thrive Functional Wellness Center.
Yes. Oh, hi, Vince and Kathy. Welcome.
Hi, Vince and Kathy.
Glad you guys could join us. So today we're talking all about gluten, and we're really going to do a deep dive. We're going to talk about places that it hides. We're going to talk about things that may contain gluten. And really, we're going to end it with, why is this even important to you? What types of symptoms does your body, can your body have from the exposure? So we're going to go right into...
Deep dive. Get on your scuba gear. We're going for it. Okay, so let me just read to you gluten.
So what is gluten?
Gluten is a protein that's naturally found in some grains, which would include wheat, barley, and rye, to name a few. It acts as a binding agent, and as you'll see, some of the places that we're going to describe where you may find it that you're not aware of, it acts as a binding agent, and it affects the products that we're eating. A best example would be, let's look at pizza dough. If you've ever seen a guy take a pizza dough ball and throw it up in the air and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, gluten is what allows that dough to have that stretchy elasticity to it. Without the gluten, it would just rip. Okay? So it acts as a binding agent. It gives it flexibility and stretchiness and elasticity, and it also can be used as a thickening agent, as you'll see when we describe some of the areas that you'll find it that you might not be aware of.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's gluten.
Yeah, that's a great description of gluten. So first we're going to talk about foods that we know contain gluten. And we're going to look at different lists because there's a lot, and it's a lot to memorize. Right. So places gluten hides. So the most common foods that contain gluten, the number one is pasta. Yes, your ravioli, your dumplings, all the different types of pastas.
Then we got noodles. Don't forget noodles. Noodles. We're talking about romaine noodles. They got soba on here. There's chow mein, egg noodles, all of those noodles. Noodles are going to have gluten in it.
Yes, they're going to have gluten. And now breads and pastries. I feel like this is what we think of when we think of gluten, right? We've got your croissants and your bagels and your bread, your cornbread, your muffins, your donuts, your rolls. All of those contain gluten.
And a lot of people say, but can I have some crackers, Dr. Rappy? And I said, well, crackers are going to have gluten in it. What about pretzels? What about goldfish? What about graham crackers? They all have gluten.
Yeah, yes.
It's in all of them.
And your baked goods, your cakes, your cookies, your pie crusts, your brownies, those all contain gluten as well.
Yep. Now you're talking about cereals and granola. We hear this one all the time. But granola is so healthy for us. Okay, granola is going to have, and cereals are going to have gluten in them.
Now remember, we're just talking about gluten today. We're not even talking about all the other things that the sugars, the toxins, preservatives, and all that.
Additives, fillers, and all that stuff.
Right.
We're just talking about the fact there's gluten in there.
Right. So, but I hear things like that and I'm like, I want to add that. Breakfast food. So your waffles, your pancakes, your French toast, biscuits, crepes, they have gluten.
Crepes, right? Like I eat those every day.
Haven't
No,
had a
but I
crepe
might
in
have them on a
years.
special occasion. No, that's not the right thing. Breakfast foods. Oh, she covered that one. Breads and coating like panko, right?
Yeah.
Those kind of things are going to have gluten in them.
Yes. Croutons. Yes, your croutons, your stuffings, your dressings, those also have gluten.
Sauces and gravy. Sauces, that binding agent, thickening agent. Think of that, thickening agent. So binding engravings, definitely going to have gluten.
Yes, and salad dressings, most of your canned goods, because of the binding that it creates, also has all of the gluten in
Cream
it.
sauces made with a roux. Okay.
Well, yeah, a roux, you're adding flour.
Yeah, you're
so-
putting flour in there. Big
Yeah.
time gluten.
Yes. Flour tortillas. Yeah, we said it. Flour tortillas.
Flour tortillas.
Yes.
Corn tortillas.
Yes. Now, we don't have this in our notes, but I've got to do a shout out right now because it's the top of my mind.
Here it comes.
Siete Tortilla,
Siete.
Siete. Love them. They have created some amazing soft tortillas, and anybody who's tried them and likes them, give us a thumbs up. But they've really created a lot of alternatives, and even though we're not really talking about the alternatives right now, it's hard not to talk about tortillas and mention the Siete tortillas.
And they're pretty low in carbs too. I think the amount of carbs in there you get to use 2 of them, and so it's pretty reasonable. We like them. We use them a lot. We recommend them to the clients in the office.
Yes.
Okay.
And the last one on the list is
Beer. That's right, all of you guys that are watching football on a Sunday afternoon having a cold one. Beer.
yes.
Yeah, beer.
Beer has it. So these are foods that we know
For sure.
contain gluten.
No question.
Now we're going to share some of those foods where it's hiding. So here you think you're doing a really great job, but the gluten is hiding. So this was a really kind of fun list to put together, and I have it written down here too. So energy bars and granola bars.
There's that granola again.
There's that granola. I really think of those as being glorified candy bars myself. So the bars can have it as an ingredient, can also have the oats. So you got to look out for that.
And the oats. I was going to talk about it later, but it's here right now. She mentioned it, so I'm going to throw it out there. So oats don't have gluten in them, right? Oats don't. But if they're grown near other products like wheat and other grains, they can be cross-contaminated, or if they're processed in the same facility that wheat or oats or barley, or excuse me, wheat and wheat products and barley, if they're processed in the same, those oats will then be cross-contaminated. There will be gluten in there.
Right. Interesting.
Very
right?
interesting.
This is all
That's right.
education here. French fries.
Oh, French fries.
Yes, French fries have it. So often the batter can have it. And again, this whole cross contact, you're going to hear a lot about that right now. When you go to a restaurant, there's cross contact, cross contamination. That happens a lot with gluten. So that can happen in the fryer as well, which makes sense when you think about things that they put in the fryer.
And now here's an example. I'll just throw this out there. We had a client a number of years ago who turned out to be super sensitive to gluten, right? They went to a restaurant, they brought out a dinner salad, it had croutons, and she said no croutons. So she sent it back. She said, okay, you need to make me a new one. And they didn't. They just took their fork and they just flicked them off. Well, that little bit of contamination from the croutons sitting on the salad, she went into full-blown reaction right there at the table. I mean, big time. So you don't have to eat 20 croutons or 2 pieces of bread. It's just the fact that you've had that exposure. And having Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition, I can tell you, it takes the tiniest bit for my immune system to react to it. So
Yeah.
don't think, well, I have to eat a whole piece of bread. I'll just eat a half a piece. No, it's
Right.
the tiniest exposure. And it was really amazing to see that firsthand with one of our clients.
Yeah, that is amazing. Okay, potato chips. Yes, the seasonings could have malt vinegar or actual wheat starch. Processed lunch meats. That has just a lot of things in it, but gluten is hiding in those.
Gluten's hiding in there. Candy and candy bars are a no-brainer,
Yeah.
right? They're a no-brainer,
Yeah.
right? They
So-
got fillers and preservatives and all that hoo-ha in there, besides all the sugar and what it does to the pancreas and the insulin. Oh, I could go on for an hour.
Soup, cream-based soups, which can have flour as a thickener,
Right?
right? That's a good one.
So we hear this a lot. Did you get your protein? Oh yeah, I had a bowl of chicken soup. Okay, that's not enough protein, okay? But it's the soup part of it that they're exposing themselves to the gluten. So
And again, yeah, more of the cream sauces
cream
rather
sauce.
than like the chicken
Right.
broth or stock.
cream of mushroom used to be a
Yeah.
favorite when I was a kid.
Yeah, we used to make everything back then with.
Okay, I'm gonna let you finish.
Okay, so we have tortilla chips, salad dressings, and marinades. This is a real big one. And when we're talking about the marinades, I want to talk about the meats that come pre-marinated. Sometimes we grab that at Costco or one of the stores, and very often, yes, they have added sugars, but they have a lot of gluten in it, again, for the thickener, the flavor. So
Soy.
you want to be, the soy, you want to be super careful with that. Your brown rice syrup, meat substitutes. We don't recommend meat substitutes, but gluten can be found in those meat substitutes.
So if you even consider Beyond Meat, you need a psychiatric examination, okay? It's all fake. And if you did your research and really dug in, got to the real truth about Beyond Meat and the fake meat that Bill Gates is pushing, you'd be shocked that they even allow people to eat that stuff. It's so toxic for us.
And
Our
really-
body is not meant to eat that stuff,
If you
period.
just read the labels. We are always teaching our wellness members to read the labels. And I'm not talking about the part that says sodium and calories. Everything has natural containing calories, sodium, sugars. I'm talking about the other ingredients
Right.
where they hide the toxins, the preservatives, and all that. So you definitely will see that. Soy sauce. That's a big one. And soy on its own, I think we talked a lot about that in one of our thyroid talks.
Right.
Pre-seasoned, so cheesecake filling. I love cheesecake. So this is interesting. This was something when I was kind of doing the research. Okay, someone else is giving a thumbs up for cheesecake. So eggs served at restaurants. So what they're saying when I was reading about is, again, there's that cross-contamination where they could be, cooking pancakes or waffles, so now you can have that exposure.
Right.
And again,
Like a
and then we
scrambled
talked
eggs,
about
they're
oats.
not just taking eggs and making a scramble like you do at home. They're using some kind of a powdered egg that's going to have, like Lori's saying, the fillers and the thickeners in it.
Right.
And so that's all going to be gluten-based.
So why are we even talking about this? Why did we dedicate an entire Facebook Live just about gluten? So we're going to go into what are the most common symptoms caused by gluten exposure. And we're going to talk, oh, hi, Susie. Nice to see you again. We're going to talk about the couple things with the gluten. So often people think, oh, I don't have celiac, or, oh, I don't have any sort of, I've never been tested and I don't have any gluten intolerance. So they think, oh, I'm fine, right? Well, no. What we're going to describe, these are symptoms that can happen to anyone. Me, doctor, you. So I'm going to let the doctor kind of dive into what are the most common symptoms caused by gluten exposure.
So when we see gluten exposure, we'll typically see somebody will have bloating, maybe some diarrhea, constipation, or stomach pains. They don't know they eat and they go, oh, I have these stomach pains. Headaches, possibility, fatigue, depression, and anxiety is going to be related to gut dysfunction, okay? Gut
Right.
dysfunction. Or what they're experiencing is they're experiencing a reaction and it makes them really anxious, like what's going on? What's happening to me, right? And so there's those issues. It can cause pain, including brain fog. But for me personally, in practice, I think the most important thing that people need to hear about gluten and gluten exposure is this, is that gluten breaks down in the digestion into a product called, or a particle called, a gliadin. That gliadin will directly affect a protein in your gut called a zonulin. This protein, it helps hold the cells together really tight, like my fingers. In between my fingers, that would be considered a tight junction, the space between my fingers. That's normal physiology in the intestinal lining. Those cells are really tight together. So when I digest foods, only the smallest particles can slip through that tiny crack into my bloodstream, and that's normal physiology. But when we eat gluten, these gliadins, they affect those proteins that hold my cells together, and all of a sudden, they're like accordions. I start to get these large gaps between the cells, just like the gaps between my fingers. And that allows all kinds of things to slip into my bloodstream, from undigested foods, protein chains that didn't break down properly, bacteria, fungus, viruses, toxic waste that are supposed to go out the trapdoor into the sewer system. They can all now leak through these big spaces between the cells. They leak into my bloodstream and they go everywhere in my body. That's leaky gut. So gluten drives leaky gut syndrome. Now, as we have these big openings in our intestinal tract, and all of these bad things are slipping in there, the first thing they come into contact with is my immune system. The immune system is trying to protect me. So when these bad guys slip through there and they are exposed to the immune system immediately does what? It builds an antibody, and then it attacks and destroys whatever that outside invader is.
Right.
Now, with continued exposure, at some point down the road, I'm going to develop an autoimmune condition. That's what most autoimmune conditions, or how I should say, most autoimmune conditions are developed through a leaky gut syndrome. So we've got to make sure that we keep and maintain what's called the permeability and the integrity of the intestinal lining, so we don't have toxins leaking into our bloodstream, which also are going to get to our brain eventually. So it's really important to understand that if I eat gluten on a regular basis, I'm going to develop leaky gut syndrome. 8 out of 10 people in the United States have leaky gut syndrome. The vast majority of them don't know, because they're so used to how they feel that they don't understand that when they eat something and they get that upper respiratory, or they start to get gassy or bloaty, they don't associate it with gluten exposure. Right? So it's really important. That's the premise. Now, the last thing that I'm going to say, I'm going to let Lori finish. I hear it all the time. But I have gluten-free bread, Dr. Appy. I had gluten-free cookies. So if you believe that gluten-free is real, then I've got some swamp land in Florida I'd like to sell you. Gluten-free is a fallacy. In the early 2000s, the government put together some rules and regulations with the FDA that determined that you could have a certain percentage of gluten in the products and you could label it as gluten-free. So if you think that the highly processed, low quality, horrible, over-sweetened, yummy, gluten-free products are healthy, big mistake. Stay away from it. It's a lie. It's not true. Every time you eat that, you're exposing yourself to gluten, because there is gluten in there.
It's kind of like the gluten-free, the sugar-free stuff kind of freaks me out, because it's
chemicals.
really sweet. So what do you think they sweetened it with? So I know the wellness members who work with us, we teach healthy, yes, Shauna, that's exactly it. I love that. When we teach healthy swaps for everything, for absolutely everything. And again, what's important to note is I know a lot of people that when we work with them and they've made these changes and they're like, oh, but my husband or my so-and-so, they eat it and they don't have any symptoms. Well, like the doctor said, the damage is slowly being done in your
Internally.
body. So sometimes it's happening. Sometimes we have those red flags, symptoms. Sometimes we're just so disconnected with how we feel. And the whole brain-gut connection, we've talked so much about that. And what's happening in your intestines affects your mood, your clarity of thought, all of that. So again, this is why when we work with people, we do so much different testing, but we also offer the nutritional coaching and the support, because it's a huge part, and you really need to learn the different tools and healthy swaps and all that. So, you know, our purpose of doing this today was really to bring it to light, to educate you on what gluten really is doing in the body. And again, it's just one little piece of everything that's happening between what you're eating during the day, where your hormone imbalances might be, maybe your inflammation. It's just one piece of a puzzle, but we thought it was important enough to talk about it.
Yeah,
right?
so, and it's all linked. Like I said earlier, if we're overexposing ourselves to gluten, we drive down ourselves down the path of leaky gut. That's going to possibly lead to, and we see it with a lot of our clients, lead to an autoimmune condition. Now they've got all these crazy autoimmune symptoms. Oh my gosh, no one knows what's going on. They've been to 20 different doctors. No one's been able to help them, right? So now we've got two things. We got to fix that leaky gut, because that's what's triggering my immune system to attack other tissues. And then I've got to correct the underlying cause, which is going to be the autoimmune condition. So believe me, there's plenty of people out there that we're working with that started out with leaky gut and developed an autoimmune condition, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, and you know what? We're
autoimmune, both of us. And so we know when we talk to people, it's pretty straightforward. If you've got gut issues, Lori's the gut expert. She's lived it for all these years. And I've had Hashimoto's for many years. And so when we're talking to thyroid people, I know what they're going through because I've lived it, not some doctor who's read about it in a book 20 years ago.
Yes.
Really important.
Yeah, the hands-on experience of what we've done for ourselves personally, because anybody who works with us, they know we practice what we preach, and then all the different wellness members that we've worked with over the last 10, 11, 12 years, however long it's been. So I hope everybody learned a little something about gluten. Again, this month, our first video, hopefully you saw, was all about anxiety. We talked a lot about anxiety. Then last week I did the fall tips and tricks and all that. Next week we're talking about, playing with the shadow of the light is changing, so we have to change our spot, I think, but I got distracted by your little hand.
Sorry.
So next week we're talking about childhood obesity. So we've done a little underlying theme for the month is about sugar. I know we talked all about gluten, but really talking about sugar. And I know it's also coming up to Halloween and all that, but it's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So by talking about healthy alternatives, that also helps to reduce our sugar intake. So I hope everybody enjoyed the information. And as always, we come live here on Facebook every Tuesday at 4:30. We are trying to talk about topics that are important to you. So if there's something that you want to hear us talk about, you can put a comment below. You can send me an email. I love when people send me emails or comments on Facebook and even on Instagram, because this is about helping you, and it's also helping to give you hope that you don't have to feel the way you feel. It's like that saying, are you sick and tired of feeling sick and tired? It's time. And look, as the lighting is going up.
There's a reason and there's a cause, and that's our goal, is get to that cause and correct it. Very straightforward.
And
that's what we do.
Yeah, and next week with the time change, we'll have a different spot. I'm watching.
Oh, it'll be dark next week, right?
Yeah. And we have all of our contact information also available above or below or wherever it is. But we appreciate everyone who joined us live. Always great to see, I say faces, but great to see everybody. Oh, thanks, Shauna. We really appreciate that. We're trying. And again, if there's any topic you're curious about, it's great for us. Sometimes we learn new things, and which is exciting for us and exciting for you guys. But I hope you have an amazing evening and enjoy the rest of your week. And we look forward to seeing you next week. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a great week.